I think it really comes down to internally and about yourself. I think that we can ultimately have, do, be, and achieve anything and everything that we want in life, and in the volumes that we want it and at the speed that we want it, as long as we're prepared to believe and as long as we're prepared to look forward and to find it. So that's kind of the premise of Limitless. I believe that we are all limitless and we can have everything that we want in life.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share great conversations with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how and where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits that this has created. You see, the truth is that everyone invests. Every minute of every day, we're investing our time, our skills, our energy and our money in something. Some of us are investing consciously, some unconsciously, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, and sometimes for no impact. Get Invested will help you to start living by design, not by default. I'm going to help you to make it happen, not let it happen. You'll hear the top tips on how you can live with conscious intent so that you can live more, work less, and leave a living legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living your dream, not someone else's. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at bushymartin.com.au/get invested. Thanks for listening, and now let's get invested. Hi, freedom fighters. What keeps you from the things that you desire and deserve the most? What's holding you back from the life you've always wanted and expected? Now let's wind it back for a minute. What dreams did you have when you were a kid? What were you going to be when you grew up? A spaceman? The Prime Minister? What were you going to be, do and achieve when you left school? Those days when the world was your oyster and you believed you could do and be anything. Were you going to be rich and famous? Can you even remember what your childhood goals and dreams were? And if you can, how are you tracking against them? Have you achieved all of them and more? Or have you given in and given up on all of them because your goals and dreams have just got lost along the road of just surviving from one day to the next? Is there a growing gap between where you are and where you expected your life to be? If so, what's holding you back? What can you do to redraw the borders and boundaries that hold you back in some area of your life? Whether it's your weight, your fitness, your relationships, your job, your business, your financial position, your wealth, or your ability to achieve any of your goals. Like it or not, your current situation in life revolves around how you think and what you believe. So, are your thoughts and beliefs limited or limitless? To challenge you on this, I'm going to directly borrow and draw on the excellent work done by Jim Kwik in his book, Limitless. Because unfortunately, as life moves on and we all get older, a lot of people are in the habit of shrinking their goals, their desires, their dreams, the things that they want most in their life, to fit the limits of their mind and their current situation. Just like the elephant that's raised in captivity and spends all of its life chained to a small stake in the ground. While the stake used to restrain the elephant when he was young, when the elephant reaches full size, he's been mentally conditioned to remain restrained. But it's all in his head. Just one flick of his leg and he'd be free of that tiny stake. But the chain and the stake has become his limiting comfort zone, and he's too scared to venture out beyond his now mental chains of restraint. So what about you? Because our limited lives are a result of our limited thinking and our limited beliefs. And our limited thinking has been conditioned by the lies that we kept telling ourselves for so long and so often that we now accept them as unspoken truisms. And Jim Kwik has encapsulated 7 main lies that we tell ourselves. And when Kwik uses the word lie, that's L-I-E, he means limited, ideas, entertained. So here are the 7 main lies dressed up as truisms that have limited our thinking and our lives, along with the new beliefs that we need to adopt to overcome them. And as I'm going through them, think about which lies apply to your current outlook. Line number 1 is that intelligence is fixed. The new belief that you want to create is that your intelligence can grow. If you believe it can grow, then you can put in the work to make it grow. Line number 2 is that we only use 10% of our brains. Our new belief needs to be that I'm learning to use my whole brain in the best way possible. Line number 3 accepts mistakes as failures. Your new belief you want to create is that mistakes are merely signs that you're trying something new and that they're actually opportunities to learn. Life isn't about comparing yourself to someone else. It's about comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. There's no such thing as failure, only a failure to learn. Line number 4 is that knowledge is power. Your new belief needs to shift in that knowledge has to be acted on. That knowledge combined with action equals real power. Line number 5 is that learning new things is very difficult. A new belief now that you have to adopt is that you can create to counter this is that when you learn how to learn, the challenge of learning new things can be fun and enjoyable. Line number 6 that many of us adopt is that the criticism and opinions of others matters. Your new belief? It's not other people's job to like, respect or love you. That's our job and our job alone. And finally, line number 7, genius is born. The new belief that you need to adopt is that genius isn't born. It's made and created through deep and continual practice. So, what if, instead of shrinking your possibilities to fit your mind, you flip this around and expand your mind to fit all of the amazing opportunities that the world has to offer, the limitless opportunities that are out there waiting for you. In my work these days, when I catch up with people to help them rekindle their vision of their ideal lifestyle, I'm always asking myself the question, why don't people implement what they know they should implement? Because there always seems to be some excuse. I don't have the time, I don't know who to trust, I don't know where to start. So why are you holding back? Why do we stop ourselves from achieving the things that we say that we want? Why do we procrastinate? Why do we have these negative thoughts? What if you could develop a limitless mind that creates a limitless life? Now, in his book Limitless, Quick has developed 5 keys to creating a limitless mind and a limitless life. And they revolve around an easy-to-remember framework called the Limitless Model. And it's a 3-part framework. Imagine 3 intersecting circles that overlap each other. And each of these 3 circles are what's going to unlimit you, a process Quick calls in his book Unlimiting. Actively removing the borders and barriers to your life. So start by imagining a box that you feel stuck in. It could be in an area of your life that you're not making progress in or you're not advancing. You feel like you're being held back. Maybe it's in your relationship, maybe it's in your income, maybe it's in your career, maybe it's in your health or your fitness. Just think about an area of your life right now where you feel like you're hemmed in and trapped in a box. Now, this box is a 3-dimensional box, and there are 3 forces that keep you in that box. And these are also the same 3 forces that will liberate your way out of the box. So here's the framework that's contained in these 3 intersecting overlapping circles, like the old Venn diagrams we drew in high school. The first circle is your mindset. Your mindset is your set of assumptions and attitudes on what you believe is possible, what you believe you deserve, what you believe you're capable of, and what you believe in is in your power. This is your mindset. Now, the second circle is your motivation. What is your motive for taking action? Now, a lot of people think that motivation is about getting hyped up, going to an event, but the evidence that you're motivated is that you do something. You can say that you're motivated, you can feel like you're motivated, but if you're not acting and working out or reading or doing the things that you need to do, then you're not really motivated, are you? And there's a 3-part formula to motivation that is part of the 5 steps to becoming and living limitless. And these 3 parts are the key to sustainable motivation, to become limitless in your thinking and how you live your life. When some people think about limitless, they think about the movie with Brad Cooper and Robert De Niro, where Brad Cooper goes from zero to hero by taking a pill. And when he takes that pill, he instantly develops incredible memory, incredible focus. He learns languages, he writes books in a handful of days. But what happens after the pill wears off? He loses all of his motivation and his powers. So what's the key to sustainable motivation? Well, I'll come back to that in a minute. Because the final piece, the 3rd M, after you have mindset and motivation, is your methods. Your methods are the strategies, the techniques, the tools, the process for achieving your goals. Now, in the book, Quick talks about accelerated learning, and his methods are on speed reading, on memory improvement, on focus, concentration, on how to study technical material in half the time. But if you don't have the mindset and motivation to use these tools, there's a big lie. And that lie, again, is that knowledge is power. Because here's the thing. All the videos, podcasts, programs that you do, none of it works unless you work too. And so knowledge is potential power, but it becomes real power when you what? When you put it into action. And this is really the key. So when you imagine the limitless circle framework of mindset, motivation, and methods, what you need to imagine is the intersecting points. Because where mindset crosses over with motivation, you end up with inspiration. Where mindset and motivation mix, you have inspiration. Now, there are plenty of mindset books and motivation books, and there are inspirational books and inspirational speakers and inspirational movies. Where mindset crosses over with methods, where you believe it's possible and you know what to do, then you have ideation. It only stays an idea because you lack the what? The motivation. And where motivation crosses over with methods, you have something called implementation. You're motivated and you know what to do. In other words, the methods. But you can still be stuck in that box because you're only going to be able to achieve what you believe is possible, what you believe you're capable of, what you believe you deserve. So, for example, if I sat you in front of a piano or another music instrument for the first time, would you be able to play a complete complex piece? You probably wouldn't be able to even read the music, yet alone twinkle the ivories. And this was exactly the situation I faced when I first started playing piano a few years ago. I had no intention of becoming a concert pianist, but I wanted to learn to play my favourite contemporary pieces, most of which are over 5 pages of music long and contained over 15,000 notes. But I wasn't daunted because I was determined to eat the elephant in small mouthfuls. I wasn't going to tackle the whole thing straight off the bat. So I developed my own colour coding format, where every bar that was the same progression, I coloured the same. Then I just started learning each piece a bar at a time. In other words, just 4 notes. And I played it over and over until I didn't have to think about it. Then I added the next bar and did the same, and then the next bar, and then the next bar. And using my repeating colour coding system, I quickly learned to play complex pieces from memory over just a couple of months. And I'm only talking about this to show you what's truly possible. But here's the thing. We were never taught to think to learn this way. And if anything, we were taught a lie. We were taught a limit. As I mentioned earlier in Quick's book, a lie, that's L-I-E, is a limited idea entertained. A limited idea that you're entertaining, which is not necessarily true. So you might be able to learn my paint by colours techniques to learn complex piano pieces. That's your method. But if your mindset is, I'm too old, or I'm too stupid, or I've got a bad memory, then your brain is like a supercomputer and your continual inner self-talk is the program that's going to run. So if you're continuously telling yourself that you're not good at remembering names, then you'll not remember the name of the next person you'll meet because you've subliminally programmed your supercomputer mind not to. In fact, this is step one for Quick's limitless mind and limitless life. You need to be able to upgrade your mindset. And where it starts is your self-talk. People come to me all the time and say, Bushy, I'm not good with numbers or money. Or Bushy, I'm too old. Or Bushy, I'm just not smart enough to understand all of this property and finance stuff. But this is where Quick says, stop. If you fight for your limitations and defend them, you get to keep them. So if you continuously reinforce and fight for your limitations, then they're yours. You become what you talk about and what you ask for. And here's the thing. When you have that negative self-talk, your subconscious mind is always eavesdropping on your inner self-talk. And let's face it, most of us wouldn't say to a friend or even an enemy what we say to ourselves. So it's time to change your self-reinforcing, self-perpetuating script. You need to keep it positive. And the best way of doing this is just through self-awareness. Catch yourself out and replace your dialogue. Start listening to and noticing your inner voice. And when you say something negative like, oh, I don't have a good memory, then just add a little yet at the end. I don't have a great memory yet. I don't understand property or finance yet. I'm not fit yet. Or I'm not losing weight yet. And that little yet opens up the world of possibility. That's what Quick defines as step one, to upgrade your mindset and control your self-talk. Steps 2, 3 and 4 of Quick's limitless approach come in the form of what he calls his motivation formula. These are the keys to achieving sustainable motivation. If you procrastinate and put things off, or you self-sabotage, you need to look carefully at your motivation. So the key components of Quick's motivation formula are paraphrased as follows. Firstly, purpose, or what I prefer to call reason. Secondly, energy. And lastly, simple, small steps. Starting with purpose. When you want to be motivated, you need to ask yourself this question. Why must I do this? What are the real benefits that are going to come? What are all of the rewards that I'll achieve by doing this thing? And what are the consequences that I will feel and experience if I don't do this? And as you'll hear from today's guest, if your reason is big enough, then you can do anything. For example, I've actually been talking about playing piano for donkey's years, but it wasn't until my dear old mum said that it was one of her dying wishes that she'd love me to play piano that I was motivated to finally take it up. And I stay motivated because every time I play the piano, I think of Mum, God bless her. I have a big emotional reason for playing piano. And a great book to help you find your reason or your purpose is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. So start with your why. Why must I do this? Second in the Quick's motivation formula is energy. You need to create more and optimize your energy levels. You can be very motivated in your mind, but you may not always be able to follow through because you're lacking in energy. Let's say that maybe you're motivated and you have a purpose to work out. You know all the reasons and all the benefits of how you're going to feel and look good. But maybe you've just had a newborn baby and you haven't slept for a couple of days. What are you going to do? You're not going to be motivated because you lack the energy to follow through. Or let's say you want to read more and aim to read a book a week, but you've just enjoyed a really big meal of carbs and you're in a dozy food coma. So you have all the right reasons, but right now you lack the mental energy because you're suffering from mental fatigue and brain fog. So you just can't get yourself motivated to read. So you need to optimize your energy. And while I won't go into a lot of detail on this now, optimizing your energy is about developing good, quality, happy habits and rewarding rituals in how you sleep, how you breathe, what you do and don't eat and drink, how you meditate and relax, how you minimize stress, how you exercise. As we've discussed a lot of this in a lot of other episodes of Get Invested. So now you have a big reason. You have unlimited energy. But will you always be motivated? No, you're still missing the final ingredient. If that thing you desire is too big, if your goal is too big, too intimidating, or just too confusing and complex, like maybe your goal is to connect with your soulmate and live happily ever after, well, that's way too big. Maybe your goal is to have the perfect physique and six-pack abs. That's also way too big from the get-go. Or maybe your goal is to become the next billion-dollar online brand. Again, way too big at the outset. So, as we discussed with James Clear's Atomic Habits in a previous episode of Get Invested, it's about starting by breaking your goal down into small, simple steps. That's small, simple steps. You'll remember that to get that first small, simple step, you need to ask yourself this question. What is the smallest action I can take that would allow me progress towards this goal where I can't fail? What's the smallest action I can take that gives me progress towards this goal where I can't fail? Because it required very little effort and very little energy. What's the one thing I can do today that will take me closer to my goal? So maybe you're going to think, oh, I've got to work out every single day. So maybe your small, simple step, if you're not motivated, is just to put on your running shoes. Maybe if you want to read a book a week, well, that's initially too big. Maybe it's just opening up the book today and reading one sentence. And you know that you won't stop at one sentence, but by opening the book, you've started. And as I said earlier, in my case, when I wanted to learn a complex new piece on the piano, I just started by learning the first bar of 4 notes and play it over and over until it becomes second nature. Then I add the next bar and then the next bar until over a couple of months I'm able to play a 20,000 note score of music from memory. As Quick says, yard by yard it's too hard, but inch by inch it's a cinch. That's the goal. Break it down into tiny steps. Okay, so far, in order to build and create your limitless mind and your limitless life, first, control your self-talk, your thoughts, and you'll upgrade your mindset. Second, create a big enough reason or find your purpose. Third, optimize your energy by creating quality sleep, breathing, exercise, food, stress management, etc. And fourthly, break your goals down into small, simple steps. Now, your fifth key for creating a limitless mind and a limitless life is to upgrade your methods. In times of crisis, when things are rapidly changing, in turbulent times like we're currently experiencing, you don't want to downgrade your dreams to meet your current situation. What you need to do is to upgrade your capabilities, your methods, your skills to meet your dreams and your destiny. And my challenge to you is, when was the last time you really upgraded your skills? When was the last time you focused on learning something new? As I've said before, if you're going to survive and thrive in the radically uncertain and rapidly changing times that we continue to live in, the one skill you need to invest in and excel in is creative, lifetime learning. If you can invest in learning to love how to learn, then this is the essence of the limitless outlook and the limitless life. You can apply this limitless learning to money, marketing, management, music, martial arts, you name it. Everything in your life is going to get easier when you embrace learning every day. If you invest in learning to upgrade your brain like you upgrade your mobile phone, then you can start investing in all aspects of your life with confidence, from self to health to wealth. Because here's the thing, as Quick says, it's not about how smart you are, it's about how are you smart. It's not about how smart you are, it's how are you smart. And here's the final words, because your life is like an egg. If an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if an egg is broken by an inside force, life begins. Great things begin on the inside, and I know that you've got greatness inside of you. You've got genius inside of you. Now is the time to adopt and integrate your mindset, motivation, and methods so that you can transform your limitations and create your limitless mind so you can have and enjoy your limitless life. And if you're looking for a living, breathing example of limitless, then today's special guest, Goose McGrath, is the perfect example. Goose lives, eats, and breathes limitless in everything he does. And Goose McGrath is so limitless in his generosity that he joins me in a special 2-part interview. Goose is the CEO of dashdot Buyers Agents. And there's a number of things I love about what he's doing through his company. Firstly, Goose's approach comes from an entirely new angle. Instead of following the status quo in property, he's helping investors build profitable portfolios with a proprietary Holy Trinity Formula, a renegade strategy that has helped his clients achieve an average of 61.75% return on capital in just the first 12 months. And no, he's not a developer, he doesn't sell properties, and he's not peddling gimmicks. He runs a service business that works directly with and for his clients to get them results. Secondly, Goose and I are cut from the same cloth. He's all about buying back time, building a legacy, and having more fun. You'll be inspired as he shares his vision. Now, despite his success, Goose has had an unconventional pathway to property success because being limitless can have both its good and its bad sides. As you'll hear in our great chat, he started running his own business in his early teens, organising music festivals, and he's experienced some highs and some massive lows, failing businesses, addictions, and other issues. Like me, it was hitting rock bottom, being broken that will be his catalyst for positive change and growth. He threw himself into property in his 30s, made some mistakes, and learned some key lessons. In my view, it's these experiences that make him more qualified than most. Goose charts his journey as the author of his own book that is also appropriately titled Limitless, The Renegade's Guide to Building Wealth Through Property. And he's also the podcast host of the Investor Lab, the auditory epicenter for passionate people seeking a life of freedom, choice, and abundance. And I'm really looking forward to joining Goose on the Investor Lab soon. So in part one of our chat today, we talk about the importance of asking why, how to overcome addiction and how to focus on and use an addictive personality as a power for good, why you need to test the edges. We touch on his unique Holy Trinity property formula, which we're going to expand on in part 2. But most engagingly, Goose shares his story of hope and inspiration, where he's turned his life around from death's door on the edge of the abyss and has rebounded to a life of growth and fulfillment, the true fruits of a limitless approach to life. Goose's story confirms that it doesn't matter where you're at. You can take steps to transform your life, and property can be your vehicle to do just that. If you want to find out how, I'd love to personally show you. Join me as I take new and experienced investors to new heights with my unique Know-How Property Freedom Flight program, where I'll guide you through my proven process for property investment success. To book a ticket or to find out more, just click the link in the show notes at knowhowproperty.com.au/freedomfighters or visit knowhowproperty.com.au. And if you want to get a taste of Goose's unique dashdot property approach, you can watch his intro video on how to build a portfolio up to 6 times faster with much less risk by going to the link dashdot.info/6 times bushy. Click on the link in the show notes or email me at bushy@knowhowproperty.com.au and we'll shoot you the details. Now, enjoy part 1 of my high energy and engaging chat with Goose McGrath. Welcome back, Freedom Fighters. Now, over the last few months, I've been opening your ears to the once-in-a-20-year window of opportunity that is really emerging for hardworking Aussies in the property space. So today, we'd like to do another deep dive to further whet your appetite with another like-minded country boy turned property investor, educator and buyer's agent who also, like me, believes in living life without limits. I'm talking about the infamous Goose McGrath. So welcome, and let's get invested, Goose.
Bushy, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. I got to say, it is a genuine honour to be able to spend some time with someone of your calibre and to be able to be on the show. I really, really appreciate the time.
No, likewise, mate. I mean, it sounds a bit like a comedy show, the Bushy and Goose Hour, mate.
Totally.
So we're going to have a fair bit of fun with this, mate. But you're very well known and making a big dent in the property market in a very short space of time, and I love your attitudes and philosophies on life, mate. But for those who are listening who haven't heard of you, can you just start by giving us a rundown on who you are, what you do, and most importantly, why you do what you do, buddy?
Yeah, so there's obviously, there's a lot to unpack. I guess the short answer on like who I am is I'm Goose. I now live in Bondi. I run a company called Dashdot. What we do specifically is provide a strategic advisory and acquisition management service. What we do is a little different from a buyer's agency service. A buyer's agency service is kind of like more like a shopping service, right? Hey, I'd like one of these, go get. We don't do that. We really have a deep focus on helping people to get to the end destination, which is more about, what is the end destination? Freedom, happiness, fulfillment, abundance, all of this other stuff. Property is just a little piece in the middle. So that brings me a lot of joy. I grew up in regional Victoria. Only been in the property space for a few years, so it's been a pretty wild journey. But I guess where do you want to go? Do you want to go all the way back? Where do you want to end up?
Yeah, well, the before we do that, I'd like to drill into the why a bit because everyone in property has a different reason for doing it. I think yours is a bit larger than that, and you've sort of touched on it a little bit, but I'd really like to sort of delve into the why for you if I can, mate.
Yeah, it's a good one, right? So I'm a visionary, right? So in the kind of like different mental model makeup, I'm a visionary. So there's a couple of different factors to kind of try and sum this up. It might sound a little bit wild, but when I was growing up, I was always a punk. I was an anarchist punk. So one of the earliest books that I ever got was a book on politics. And growing up, when I was a kid, like when I was like 5 years old, when most kids are like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? They're like, fireman or whatever. I was like, I want to be the Prime Minister of Australia, right? Straight up, not even just a politician. I wanted to be the Prime Minister of Australia. That was it. And so I've always had this aspiration that I wanted to make change in people's lives. Now, once I hit about my, maybe 12, 13, my early teens, I suddenly realized that everyone hates politicians, right? So I was like, hang on a second, there's got to be a better way here. And so I kind of, that was sort of me starting my music journey as well. And then, I got right into punk and I was a bit of an anarchist and sort of all of this other kind of stuff as well. And I've always had a bit of an idea that I wanted to create change. I haven't been satisfied with the status quo in a general sense. Now, the way that has manifested now is that I've thought about going into politics again, but I saw what happened to Peter Garrett, right? And I figured if Peter Garrett can get chewed up and spat out, then I'm like, I might not stand a chance. So the way that I think about how to change society, and I've put a lot of thought into it, like, hey, how would we need to completely dismantle the entire social economic structure and all that kind of stuff? But realistically, I think the way that I can make the most amount of difference is by helping people to achieve freedom, choice, and abundance, right? That's how I sum it up. But basically achieve greater levels of prosperity. Now, I don't want to, I am enriched on a daily basis to do that to an individual and with an individual and for an individual and alongside an individual. But the reason that I am doing this is because I actually want to change the whole country. I want to change society. That doesn't mean that I want every single one of 23 million Australians to come and become a client and a property investor. But I know that if I can help enough critical mass of people to transform their life, to transform the way that they are in the world, their prosperity, what that does creates a ripple effect. So when people have more and they have more freedom, they have more positivity, more opportunity, they not only inspire others, so that lifts other people up, but it also actually gives them the ability to have the liquidity to make an impact. Now, that liquidity to make an impact could be something like they can send their kids to a better school, and that has second and third order consequences where that kid might be able to then go on and do something more and more and more. So this is multi-generational impact, societal change. But also maybe they can contribute more to charity. Maybe they actually have the time to go and volunteer so they can actually make a difference. So I believe that the way that I'm going to put a dent in the universe is actually by helping other people to achieve more.
Love it, mate. Again, I feel like I'm listening to myself here. We've both got a very similar vision and a very similar approach to life, mate. So it's very refreshing to be able to talk to someone with the same approach. And I agree with you on the politics front, mate. I had similar visions. I'm nearly twice your age and had similar political persuasions about your time, and I was dumb enough to get involved up in the Northern Territory, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And back in the days, drove the young CLP, and I designed a board game around Fightback, which was going gangbusters, and I got shut down, not because it wasn't a good idea, but because other people saw it as a threat, and learned very quickly, unfortunately, that most people involved in the political arena are there for their own ends, not for helping others. And the amount of compromise that goes with that arena, mate, if anyone with integrity who likes to sleep at night and be able to look at themselves in the eye and go, yeah, I'm comfortable with who I are, don't go down the party politics front, mate. It would be you'd destroy yourself. You'd hate yourself at the end of the day. And I think what you're talking about now will have a far greater and more meaningful and long impact than the other, mate. So if you're ever wanting to get into politics, come and talk to me again, mate, and I'll I'll put you in the straight direction, because you're going to have a much bigger influence on the world with what you're doing, buddy.
Yeah, totally. And it's a really interesting thing, because I think most people who enter into politics have an altruistic vision. You know, they have a sense of public service and going to do the right thing. But, I was always a bit more of I guess my background is festivals and events and stuff like that as well. And so I've spent the majority of my life in the left fringes of society, I didn't have a fixed address for years, like I spent time just working out in fields with all kinds of, amazing people, but like hippies, radicals, stuff like that. So on the left fringe. So it's an easy kind of thing to kind of look at it and go, okay, well, the whole capitalist system is broken and, we need to completely dismantle society. But you follow that train of thought through, and that doesn't end well either, right? No. And so then you've got this situation, if you really think it through, you're like, okay, so going like deep into the bureaucratic nature of the current model, that doesn't kind of work. But also completely trying to burn the whole thing down, that also doesn't work. So what are my options? What are my options? Just roll over and stop caring? No. Okay, well, how else can I reach people? What else can I do?
Yeah, and what you're doing now, mate, is going to achieve that in spades. So,
well, it already is, which is actually the thing that's so fundamentally, phenomenally amazing. That's the thing that I have so much more joy in my life these days, because it already is doing that, and it's wicked.
Yeah, exactly. It's very fulfilling, mate. There's no question about it. Mate, we've started to touch on your background a little bit. I wouldn't mind sort of threading the needle and going right back as far as you can remember, and talk to us about where you've invested your time, your energy and money over the journey. And I'd love to look at it in three areas, if you like. Your sort of personal life, your work life, and your investment life, because it'd be really good to sort of cover off on those three. But let's start with the personal, mate. Let's take us way back when to what you were as a kid, and where did you invest your time, energy, and money from there?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I grew up in regional Victoria, typical working class family. Mum made my school uniforms, went to the public primary school, all that kind of stuff. We lived out of town. I used to go and hang out when I got to high school. I used to go and hang out with my mates in the big town. The one that had a set of traffic lights. The Big Smoke. But all through when I was growing up, I was blessed with the opportunity to grow up in an environment where there's lots of outdoors, lots of activity. So I was in scouts and all of that kind of stuff, and really from an early age had a lot of, I'd say, entrepreneurial initiative. So I was always taking the lead in organising things, right? So whether it be organising, multi-day hikes for groups of other people, and just really trying to get my teeth into working things out. And I've always had a very curious and inquisitive mind. So my parents used to hate it because I was always a troublemaker as a kid, because I was so active in the way that I was thinking about things that I'd always be up to something, right? And I also had a pretty bad temper. But my parents used to hate it because they'd send me to my room, and I'd love it because I just had all these books, right? I'd be like, great, awesome, sweet, reading time. All right, yeah, cool, let me know when it's done. And so I spent most of my childhood just digesting vast quantities of information. I've always been a voracious consumer of information because I've always asked questions like, why? How would I know? Even when I was in primary school in RE, religious education classes and stuff like that, when I was asking questions, I think when I was 5, I asked the local priest. I was like, okay, well, so if God created the universe, who's God's mum? Who created God? When I was like 5 years old. And so I've always had this idea to try and push and push and push and go, why? Why does that? What is that for? How does that work? And that's kind of been the setup, I guess, for most of my life. Now, fast forward a little bit into my teens, and that's where things sort of got pretty interesting. So, I was starting to become a reasonably good soccer player. Of course, any teenage boy who's even vaguely good at sports, like, I'm going to be a professional at this sport. So I had those kind of aspirations, but I actually broke my back in a motorbike accident. So I was out dirt bike riding with a mate one day and crashed into a gum tree at about 60, 80 k's an hour, head first, way up in the bush. And shattered a few vertebrae. Now, I didn't sever my spinal cord or anything like that, but nonetheless, it was a pretty significant accident. Airlifted to Melbourne, the whole shooting match. Now, that was a pretty long recovery, naturally, of course, right? So, and it was a bit of a tricky one because I couldn't do any surgery because it would have made things worse, and so I was kind of just basically left to lay there and heal slowly. Now, at the time as well, they put me on more morphine than a terminal cancer patient. My mum's a nurse, right? So that perspective came from my mum as someone who's treated in palliative care. I was on more morphine than a terminal cancer patient, to give you some context around what was going on. I was 14 years old and I was stuck in bed. So
flying high, mate.
Well, the thing is about morphine, right? So if it's the correct dose, you don't get high. You don't have any kind of it attacks the pain sensors, and if the number of pain signals is equal to the number of opiate, response, it's a net neutral effect, and that's great. That's what you're after. That's correct dose. Yeah. Interestingly, though, after slowly recovered, got back to school, all of that kind of stuff, and one day I was getting ready for school and I was doing my long hair at the time. I was just caught myself. I'd been staring off into the distance for about 10 minutes. I thought, hang on, what's going on here? And I went to the doctor and said, hey, I'm still taking all this medication. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. We should have taken off that 6 months ago. So I had 6 months of unintended morphine addiction built up, and that's at 14 years old at school. So, and this kind of, that it was a really interesting moment because you could have kind of gone anyway. There could have been a bit of victim, like, oh my God, I'm addicted to morphine. I was like, okay, cool, no worries, thanks, and just went home and threw it all in the bin and went completely cold turkey and said, well, that's fine, but I am not going to miss a single day of school. I'm not going to be dominated by this, and I'm not going to let this dictate my life at all. And this is the kind of attitude that I've had the whole way through. So I went to school every day, didn't miss a single class, cold sweats, full morphine withdrawals as a 14-year-old going through high school. It was pretty interesting. But that actually helped me to build up a lot of resilience. And it also gave me a really deep understanding around some of my limits, internally. I was like, okay, like morphine addiction or opiate addiction is a pretty serious thing. And it can send a lot of people to never come back from that. But I knew that I could just stare that in the face and say no and walk away. But that was interesting as well, because that also, I think, triggered a part of me which led to, a later track record of significant substance abuse and stuff like that. Partly because I maybe had a mistaken idea that I was in control as well when I wasn't. But it was an interesting kind of turning point moment. But at the same time, when I broke my back and I couldn't play soccer anymore, I was like, okay, well, what else is there? Now, I was growing up in a small country town or a small regional area. There wasn't a lot for me to do, and I had no other interest except for music. So I listened when I couldn't walk and couldn't do stuff and I was in bed. I was listening to a lot of music, and I thought, hang on a second, what am I going to do with this? I'd love to go to some gigs when I can get out of bed again. Oh my God, there's no gigs happening around here. And the socioeconomic profile of the area in Latrobe Valley was where I grew up. Yeah. And the power stations had shut down, and there was a lot of, I guess, depression happening in the area. So I could see there was a lot of issue with young people my age, who had nothing to do, and as a result were basically getting into drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. Now, any young male doesn't mind getting up to some mischief as well, but I could also see that it was an inherent problem. So I took it upon myself at 14 years old to start organising events, basically start organising gigs. So, found all my mates' bands and hired a hall, and, I mowed lawns until I had enough money to hire a hall and printed out some flyers and started doing that. And that kind of really set the tone for the next few years. That activity started to build momentum, and it transformed an entire generation of us in that whole area. So broadly speaking, a lot of parts of Gippsland, I touched a whole spectrum of stuff there and organised a huge array of events. Organised my first unsuccessful music festival, lost a bunch of money, got back to my mum and dad. I actually left high school early because I was organising so many events and gigs and stuff, and I knew what I wanted to do, and it didn't involve school. And so I got to the first term of year 12 and I thought, what am I doing here? Like, I was good at school, but I was like, I don't need this. This is a waste of time. This is getting in the way of me organising shows. So I went to mum and dad and said, hey, look, I want to organise a festival. I don't think I need school. And they actually backed me. They'd seen all the work I've been doing, and they said, all right, fair enough, cool. We think it's the right thing, which was huge. Massive. So, yeah, massive. So then I spent a decent amount of time, about 8 months, building out a business plan, everything like that, and getting sponsors and, going to put on a genuine festival. Mum and dad backed me for $10,000, which was massive. It was epic at the time. Yeah. It was more money than I'd ever known. Yeah. Cool. And then lo and behold, we had a couple of headliners pull out at the last minute because I hadn't done contracts properly, and the event basically fell on its ass. And it was a big moment though. But I was very grateful that my parents basically copped it on the chin. I remember my dad rocking up at the end of the show to help pack up, and he said, "How'd it go?" And I was devastated. I'm thinking, "Oh my God!" Like, they took money out of their mortgage to lend it to me. Because they didn't have much money either, and they actually drew down on their mortgage to lend me $10,000, and I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I've destroyed this. And I remember I was terrified, I was shaking, and I said to my dad, I said, oh, it hasn't gone that well. He said, oh, well, how bad it go? I said, well, I think we've lost a bit of money. He said, well, how much? And I think they'd lent me $15,000, and I said, well, I think we've lost about $10,000. And I was waiting for a hiding, I was thinking, oh my God, here we go. And I was devastated. And he just looked at me and he said, all right, well, you win some, you lose some, and you learn along the way. So what do you want me to pick up next? And we just got stuck into it. And, that growing up, in hindsight, growing up with that kind of mentality around me has, I think, really shaped a lot of the journey as well. Yeah,
I'd love to dig in there, mate, actually, because it sounds very much like that sort of fearless, limitless approach to life that you've had right from the get-go, and has continued to carry you to your current success. It's been a sort of an underlying factor. Is that the way they live their life, or no? Is it more like, well, we haven't, but we're going to make sure that you do?
You know what? I don't know that it's ever been that much of a cognitive positioning for them. You know, classic country family. Dad worked for the power station. Mum was a nurse. 2 kids. We had a nice life, but it certainly wasn't like an affluent one. You know, we didn't go on any overseas holidays. We went camping because it was cheap and it was outdoors and stuff like that. So I don't know that they certainly they're not of the same cut of the same cloth that I am, in a certain sense, that they're happy with less. They're happy to do some gardening around the house, and that's their idea of fulfillment, and which is totally fine. So I don't feel like they have limited themselves in that sense, but certainly their worldview of what they want out of life is wildly different. Yeah. But at the same time, I think they recognized quite early on that I was not going to be satisfied with that. And they understood that they only were ever going to have 2 choices. You know, they could either try and shape me into something that I'm not, and they were always super conscious of that. As my dad always said, that we can't pigeonhole you. Or they had to encourage me to continue to run. My brother is a wildly different person to me. He's a farmer. He's actually up near Stawell, so you'd be familiar with that general area. And you know, he was always a little more conservative and always a little more wild, but they understood that they had to let me run, particularly because I'd always been so voracious at attacking life from an early age. You know, whether it be, you know, going and debating at Parliament House when I was like 7, and I was always pushing the boundary and pushing.
Is that something that's innate in you, mate?
I think so.
Yeah, you just it doesn't matter what you do, you're 150%. Is that?
Yeah, that I would say so. But I'm also very grateful for the fact that has been supported and not throttled. You know, so my parents have always had the view that as long as they can make me think about the second and third order consequences, then why not? You know, they don't have that. They've always been like, okay, cool. If you want to do that, great. Here's the things you need to think about or you need to have in order to make that happen. And then they'll let me do it, as opposed to saying, no, you can't. So that was always, I think that has certainly helped. But So what it's telling me very clearly is that they weren't going to get in your way. You know, no.
They would be there to support you, knowing that to do anything else would just end in tears for everyone, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I mean, that would have been a pretty big learning curve at that stage. So hold a big festival, put all your time, energy, and invest a lot of heart and soul into it to then lose money. And great, your dad, you know, win some, lose some. Let's move on. What did you learn from it personally, and then where did that lead you to, mate? Because that clearly that was only the start of where you went in that sector.
Yeah, it was a big lesson about hubris, I think. Not one that I necessarily learned forever, but it taught me a lesson around optimism and reality, pragmatism, planning, risk management, and stuff like that. So I was planning for the best, not planning for the worst. I was planning for the best and hoping for the best, and then the best didn't happen, and I was left swimming naked, as Warren Buffett would say. But it also taught me to not let setbacks, not let things like that hold you back. It was one of many lessons, but to have that reiterated that, okay, cool, you win some, you lose some, let's all move on. I was like, okay, actually everything's going to be okay here. Cool. Let's just work through this. Let's find the pathway out, and I had to navigate with people I couldn't pay. We couldn't pay the bills. Like, we lost money. Right. So, that was an interesting lesson in, I think, resilience and focus and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it certainly wasn't the end of it. That was really that was the turning point just before I moved to Melbourne to really go even deeper into that career. I pursued working for other people in that space primarily as a contractor. So I started an event management company, but I'd be contracted by other people who were putting up their money to run their events, and I'd organise that. So that was good, and that allowed me to cut my teeth a lot more. But I guess the background that I had in doing it for myself was quite interesting, actually, because when I left year 12 and then I went and ran my own festivals and started organising. I started working on the Big Day Out when I was 17 as well, and that was the biggest festival in the country. And I was doing all this kind of stuff. By the time I was 18, I was actually lecturing at uni, guest lecturing at universities for event management classes. So I was lecturing to people my age about how to get into the space, which was pretty funny as well. But yeah, it was part of a 15-year, I guess, journey into that whole world of festivals, music. I was in touring punk bands as a front man. I DJ'd at Glastonbury Festival to a packed crowd of a good few thousand. So I've had the music side of it, but also the travel and organisation side of it. I was working on Burning Man in the desert in the US for 3 months.
Mate, I haven't been there yet. That's on my vision board, mate. My wife and I can't wait to get to.
It's awesome,
man. I've just heard, and we've got some mates who've been there, and it must have been a wild blast.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'd just come out of 3 months in Ethiopia and flew. And so I was 3 months in Ethiopia teaching permaculture, and left Ethiopia and flew straight to the US and straight out to the desert and spent 3 months out with a bunch of completely nuts Americans. And it was just talk about culture shock. It was wild. It was wild and great, And so the journey. The journeys. I mean, we organised, events for the Malaysian government for 1 million people. Worked on the Olympics, events in Glasgow, all kinds of different stuff. So it was a journey that fulfilled my desire to see and learn and experience the world. But it also came with a lot of downsides. It came with a life where there wasn't any continuity of income. It was like a gig economy, basically. I never learned the value of money. I still had, I think, inherently this belief that life could be over in a minute because of, I guess, maybe mortality kind of stuff from having broken my back. So I never planned ahead. I was, now considering I help people to build wealth, I was the guy that was like, if I had $20, I'd spend it because, hey, I could be dead in a minute. So let's just enjoy everything right now. And I lived so in the moment, and I had this genuine belief, and I still got it, that money's the only commodity in the world you can always get more of, so who cares? Now I'm like, money is the one commodity in the world you can always get more of. Cool, right? Well, let's use that. But at the time, up until relatively recently, I was like, well, if you can always get more of it, it doesn't matter, and I held no value to it, so just blow it. The lifestyle was pretty heavy, drugs, alcohol, sex, drugs, rock and roll kind of lifestyle, flying around the world, no fixed address for about 10 years, all of that kind of stuff. So it's I have no regrets, zero regrets. Yeah,
I was going to say it's a two-edged sword, that lifestyle, because it's a very addictive lifestyle, because you're rubbing shoulders with the rich and famous. There's all this intense energy into building up to an event, and then you fall off the cliff. The emotional roller coaster would have been pretty intense, because you're going full bore on something, then it's over in a blink, and then your income's gone, and then the emotions would drop down, and then I can see why you would start to turn to substance to get through it, given the I can imagine the almost 24/7 dedication that you would need to make some of those things happen.
Totally. The thing is, most people in the event space, in the event sector, when I say event sector, I'm specifically talking about outdoor music arts festivals. So it's quite seasonal. So typically they'll work, and this is not a word of lie. A lot of people say these kind of numbers and they just mean it metaphorically, but we'll work 100-hour weeks, 7 days a week, right? Just 100-hour weeks, bang, bang, bang. But they'll do it for 6 months. And then there'll be nothing for 6 months. And so then they'll rest and recover and, have 6 months on, 6 months off. I wouldn't do that. I'd do 6 months, and then I'd move to another country on the other side of the world to pick up the other season. So I'd do the Southern Hemisphere for 6 months and the Northern Hemisphere for 6 months, and just constantly, for 10 years, I didn't spend more than 6 months in Australia. Right. And it was just back to back to back to back to back. So aside from the fact that you were working literally 100-hour weeks every week, then you've got burnout. Then you've got, how do you enjoy yourself? So then you start, you start burning the candle on both ends, which creates, the snake starts to eat itself. You start to get into a bit of a doom loop. A lot happened. I I got married during that period of time. That wasn't a good decision. Nothing, but that was because I wasn't in my right frame of mind. The marriage lasted about a year because I was basically in living on another planet to some degree. I disconnected from reality. I disconnected from myself. I disconnected from so much about the core part of my identity, and it had all become wound up in this kind of pursuit of more, but also not. It was a pursuit of nothing at the same time.
You sound like someone who has an addictive personality. That's because I can say that because I have, and
I do. Yeah.
The challenge with that is because you can turn it away from the bad side of addiction, to other things, but it's always a challenge to maintain some sort of balance, because
balance is so hard.
Here over into over there, and then you go 150% into that area because you just want to know everything about it and want to be the best at it you possibly can.
Yeah,
and which is great. There's really positive sides to that, because it means that you can achieve a lot in a very short space of time.
Yeah.
As a consequence, but there can be some crash and burn along the way.
Totally, and that's the upside of it. You hit a nail on the head, right? A lot of people think addictive personality, and they're like, "Oof, that's no good." I 100% have addictive personality, but that's also what has allowed me to achieve so much. I'm grateful for it. It's just something that needs to be controlled.
Yeah. So, do you mind digging into the substance abuse? You've touched on it a couple of times, and you sort of there was the early exercise with the morphine, and I think you made a really insightful comment. Because you're able to flick the switch and turn it off, understandably you thought, well, you slowly but surely, like a frog in a boiling pot, sort of ended up getting back into some of that, and whether that's alcohol, and I'm sure there'd be a fair array of other substances.
Yeah, so some interesting stuff happened, right? I mentioned earlier this unbridled desire to understand the edges. I've always had that. And this is going to sound like I don't know what you're going to think of this, but when I was in my early 20s, I actually wanted to know what it was like to get to the bottom. When most people are like, I want a nice life and all that kind of stuff, I was like, I saw homeless people on the streets, and I was like, I can't empathize with that. I've never been there. What's it like? What would that be like? And over the course of probably a 3-year period, I deliberately went down a rabbit hole to see where it went to. And I've got to say, it was pretty gnarly. It was some pretty gnarly places that I ended up, in terms of...
What sort of stuff were you doing, mate? Was it, you feel comfortable talking about it? Yeah,
totally. I mean, look, to be quite frank, I was spending all my time with drug dealers. I had... a couple of $1,000 a week ice habit. It was getting to the point where we were smoking heroin and ice and stuff, because we were just trying to push to see where that edge was.
Yeah.
And it was
the edge the hitting the bottom, because that may be was that a conscious thing or a subconscious thing?
Well, I actually remember when I was early, when I was just in my maybe 19 or whatever, I was like, I wonder where this is going to go, and deliberately went, okay, well, I'm going to go find out. So I do remember making a conscious decision to go, okay, I want to go and see how far this goes. I want to see where it all goes. And it ended up, there was all kinds of scenarios with some plenty of underworld characters and very, challenging situation. At the end of the day, and I started to, I was just in this constant, the edge that I was looking for, I didn't know. You never know what the edge is until you find it, right? And so, but I just kept going, well, I haven't found it. I haven't broken my mind. I was high functioning, right? So I was managing pubs. I was organizing events. I was still doing my thing, So it was not like I'd become a plague on society or anything. I was working 100-hour weeks. I was doing all the thing. I didn't let anyone down. I was a man of my word, all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I was just burning, trying to find where that edge was and what that edge looked like.
It's like a firefly that keeps attracted to a light and eventually going to hit a laser at some point in time that's going to get interesting. What was that point for you then, mate? There must have been a trigger point or something that changed that. Can you talk to us about what was happening at that time, what you were feeling at that time? And then,
totally. Yeah, so there was a significant moment. So this has happened a couple of times, right? So this is the first time, and this was kind of like, as I said, a bit of a deliberate way. I was in my early 20s. I had no partner, whatever. I was like, cool, I'm a man of my own. I'll do whatever I want, and I deliberately went down that pathway, and very heavy into psychedelics and all kinds of stuff, which I am actually quite happy and proud of. I think psychedelics have a good place in the scheme of things for people. But there's a lot of other stuff that I'm less proud of. But there was a bit of a turning point moment where I think it was Boxing Day. I can't remember what year, but it was Boxing Day, and I'd taken, I think, 12 mushroom caps and smoked a spliff, and I was God knows how many drinks in. I chucked a couple of mates in the car, and I just had the mushroom caps, and I said, right, guys, we've got about 30 minutes before the mushrooms kick in, so I'll quickly drive us over to this pub, and then I'll park the car, and then we're all good, right? And in that 2 kilometre drive, why do I even need to drive 2 kilometres? Who knows? Got pulled up by the cops, and they said, "Hey, have you been drinking? Yes. Have you been taking drugs? Yes." I was very straightforward with them. I said, "Yeah, I've definitely done the wrong thing." So I just kind of was quite complicit. I was like, "Yep, all right, cool, yeah, no worries, you got me." Like, no hiding it here. And I got arrested, and there was obviously a lot of, there was too many people in the car. We weren't wearing seatbelts. The registration had lapsed on the car. You name it. The list, it was a shopping list of stuff, and this was on Christmas Eve. And and I'd never miss Christmas Eve with my family. Anyway, so I got taken into the cop shop, and because I was so straight up with them, and I remember they were starting to ask me questions. They were doing the interview, and I'm like, guys, all of the mushrooms are starting to kick in. I don't know if I should be answering these questions. And they were like, well, you got two options, right? You either sit in a cell until all of that wears off, or you finish answering the questions. I was like, well, why you put me in a box when I'm hallucinating. So, so I finished all of that and kind of got out of there. But because I'd been straightforward with them and honest and genuine and respected their position, that they were doing their job, and I'd obviously done a lot of really dumb stuff. And they ended up basically, coming back to me. So on that Christmas, on that moment there, I realized that I'd probably found the edge. And if I was going to keep going that direction, I probably wouldn't end up where I wanted my life to end up upon reflection. So at that point, that
was a conscious thought. It was like, right.
Yeah. I said, I was like, if I keep going in this direction, I don't know if that's going to be the vision I want of my future. So it's all well and good to find it, but where do I actually want to end up? And it's not always down. So I'd kind of found a point. I went, you know what? There's got to be something more to life than this. So I actually went sober for 6 months or something, and sort of got myself back on track. Did you just like the earlier experience with the morphine? Were you able just to flick a switch and go, right, that's it, I'm done? Yep.
And I'm intrigued by that because I know some other people who've done exactly the same, but they're very few and far between. Goose.
Yep, I've done it again from a worse situation, and that's the interesting thing. So,
yeah, well, talk to us about that, because if you listen to all of the AAA stuff, and once an addict, always an addict. You're only one opportunity away from being back there. There's all that stuff.
Yep.
And yet I've met some others like you who've just gone, no, that's it, I'm done. It's smack. They've just turned off the tap, and then they've taken their life in a different direction. Where is that? There's a lot of willpower and a lot of there's resilience. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Can you talk to us about that and how you think and act your way through those situations? Because you've done it a couple of times, clearly.
Yeah. So you've got to have a reason. You've got to have a reason. That's all. That's it. You just have to have a reason. Most people don't. That's the problem. And when I did at that time, I didn't have a reason. I had a reason. I felt guilty. I felt shame. I felt like I'd let my mum down. Those feelings go away. That's not a real reason. That's not a purpose. So 6 months later, I was, starting to drink again socially, and, then that started another rabbit warren over the next few years. But it's, most recently though, and we can kind of like fast forward a little bit to there, and I'll come back to your point because it's a really interesting one to answer, right? So when I went sober that time, I didn't really have a reason. I was like, okay, I left the country. I moved overseas for a while. I tried to just run away, but I had no real reason. I was just like, okay, I'll try and do something else. Now, interestingly, fast forward a few years, a whole bunch of other stuff's happened. I ended up basically broke, living in my office floor. I had no money, no friends. I had no real friends. Really, and I was an alcoholic drug addict, like in a pretty gnarly way, right? Yeah. So, we're talking, drinking a bottle of spirits a day or plus, right?
Yeah.
And lots of cocaine and all of this kind of stuff. And that was just my daily operating procedure. Again, I was doing stuff, I was working, I was higher functioning, but that was my daily operating procedure.
Yeah.
Met my partner, Gabby.
Yeah.
God knows what the hell she saw in me at that point in time. But that was a big moment. I genuinely found my soulmate. And so for the first time, I actually started to really actually have a reason it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me anymore. I was like, okay, here's actually something I want to get better for. And so that's the process from meeting Gabby to, going sober again wasn't a quick one. I was like, yeah, it's cool. I thought it was part of my identity to be this drinking, drug taking, party. I was a party guy. I was a life at the party. I'm a horrendous introvert. I am so introverted. Given a choice, I don't know what we're talking about. I talk a lot, right? But given a choice in my free time, I don't want to talk to anyone. My birthday, I deleted Facebook Messenger. I was like, I don't want people to message me. I don't want to hear from anyone. I'm an introvert through and through. But I built up this identity and this personality that only came through, this persona, when I was completely off my nut, right? So I thought, well, I guess everyone likes the guy that's that guy, so I'll just be off my nut all the time. Yeah. So that was a hard thing to change because of how much I had to shift my identity. So it was the identity piece. Because I was like, oh, hang on a second. This is not just the drugs and the alcohol. It's this identity of who I've become. And so that was a really hard thing to shift. But look, it all kind of came to a head after, Gabby and I had been seeing each other for, I don't know, maybe a year or 2 years or whatever. And she was actually working with me on a festival. And things had gotten pretty bad. They'd gotten probably as bad as they had when I started to get to the bottom in the last time, possibly worse in some ways. Yep. And she basically said, I can't sit around and watch you kill yourself. And she left. And I was like, yeah, okay. This is, I'm actually getting a bit emotional now thinking about it. I remember it was in March 2018, so not even that long ago. And I just remember, I didn't stop straight away, but it sort of hit me, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll blur out the emotion for a bit. But then eventually I was like, I'm going to die. Like, I think I can't remember even how old I am now, but I think I was about 30, 31, 32, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd gotten grossly overweight. I was really unhealthy. I was smoking and drinking. I'd wake up and just drink like half a bottle of vodka and have like a gram of cocaine, and just as soon as I get out of bed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And not only that, I'm going to lose Gabby. And anyway, I finished up that festival. It was out in the bush somewhere, out near the Grampians actually. And I drove back, and I took a big old look at myself in the mirror, and quite literally took all my clothes off, looked at myself in the mirror, and looked at who I was, and I thought, this is not what happened to that. What happened to that bright spark, that entrepreneurial kid who quit school because he was going to go and take over the world? I've become who am I? I'd lost myself. And I said to Gabby, I said, right, okay, I'm going to turn my life around. A lot of people have that conversation. And I just stopped. I said I'd stopped drinking. I stopped taking drugs. I stopped smoking. I quit sugar. I quit carbs. All in one go. Like all in one go. I said, no, now, right as of today. And that was around about, I think it was April 1st, 2018 was the day. And I just said, no more. That's not the life I'm going to live. But I had to have a reason. And I found that reason with Gabby. That was it. I was like, oh shit, here's a life that I want to live, not one that I want to burn.
And that iron will, that ability to go, right, that's it, I'm done. And I've seen it, as I say, I've seen others others been able to do it. And while I haven't gone down the substance path, my addiction has been put into work and other things. I just become batshit crazy about whatever I'm doing, and then I just chase it to the end. You mentioned something earlier on that I thought was really critical, in that early on you felt like you were in control. And because I'd love to expand on that a little bit, because that can be quite delusionary, actually. Yeah. Because when you think you can turn the switch on and off, you think you're in control. What I realised though, so from that moment on April 1st, 2018, I hit the switch and I turned everything off. So I thought I was in control again. And then I remember about 6 months later, I was like, oh yeah, I've got a handle on this. And I think I was wherever I was and somebody said, hey, do you want a glass of wine? I was like, I reckon I can handle a glass of wine. And that glass of wine turned into a 2-week bender.
Yeah.
One glass of wine.
Yeah.
A 2-week non-stop, just like the old days bender. And I was like, right, okay, turns out I'm not in control. Turns out I actually don't have control. So, and it happened again around about Christmas that same year. But then, you know, once I realized that I wasn't in control, and once you have a why big enough, and once you can face up to yourself, you know, you can start to have the perspective. But yeah, I realized I'm not in control. So now, you know, I don't drink non-alcoholic beer. Why? Because I don't want to drink beer. I'm not a beer drinker anymore. Yeah. I don't drink the non-alcoholic spirits and stuff that come out, even though it could be, you know, I like the idea of it. I like the romantic idea of like having a glass of wine with dinner and stuff like that. But I'm like, no way. Life is too good. There is not a single piece about any of that. There's not a flavour or a sensation that would be worth throwing my life away again.
Yeah, I'd say, and like you said, mate, if the reason's big enough, then and that becomes your magnet. Then you can judge every decision you make on a day-to-day basis.
100%.
Yeah, I love it, mate. That takes a lot of guts. Let's move into, because obviously a big shift, and what I'm also picking up is Gabby has been absolutely instrumental in the success that you're both now enjoying as a consequence. Talk to me about that.
Categorically, like a lot of people see myself and Gabby, or more specifically, they'll often see me because I'm, you know, we've got a podcast, I'm, you know, on social media, whatever, you know, like I'm the voice box basically. But without Gabby, we wouldn't have anything that we're doing at all. Like I'd probably be dead for a start, right? So, you know, there's like all credit is to Gabby, because she's, you know, our company's called Dashdot, and there's a whole funny story around how
talk to me about that, because I love it. I mean, I love the fact that you've got the guts and the courage, and again, I guess I'm talking about myself here as well, because we've both got very memorable nicknames that people are either going to go, I'm comfortable with that guy, or this guy must be a wanker. And but it's your brand and my brand. We're exactly the same in that regard, and I just find it works really well. But my wife also, mate, we're like the yin and yang. I'm the peacock that's out there loving to talk, and she makes it all happen behind the scenes. I would be nothing without her, mate.
Yeah, totally. So the whole name Dashdot, like, again, it's a whole nother story about why we started that. But it was basically, you know, I move 1,000,000 miles an hour, so I'm the dash and she's the dot, right? So she's the yin to the yang, basically.
Love it. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, because I was actually scratching my head. I was thinking, is this Morse code for something? When I was researching the podcast, I looked at what does dash dot mean in Morse code, and that didn't ring true. So, yeah, I love it, mate. You're the dash and she's the dot. That is awesome.
Pretty much.
So let's talk about that, because there's a massive gulf between a high-flying global role organising events, you name it, to now investing in property yourself and then helping others to do the same. I'd love to drill into, you know, you obviously hit a point of, okay, we're going to do something different. Yep. So I'd love to understand.
Totally, yeah. So
property.
Yeah, it's a good little segue, right? Because as I said, you know, March 2018, you know, that was when
I realized it was all going to, everything had to change. And it was only in 2018 that we bought our first property.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But that was part of that transition. Once all the haze had cleared and I could see my life through clear eyes again, I was like, what is going on here? Got no money, working 100-hour weeks, got nothing to show for it. I'm in my 30s. God, what's going on here? And so Gabby and I thought, hey, let's do what every young couple wants to do. Let's try and create a better life. I see all these people making money in property and, let's go and buy some real estate, right? And I remember talking to my business partner at the time. He was thinking about buying some property too. We didn't have any money, but we borrowed money off family and stuff like that to get the deposit together and all of that kind of stuff. But I remember talking to my business partner and property, right? So property doubles every 7 years, right? Yep. Pretty sure that's it. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you buy, it just all goes up. Yeah, I think that's it, right? So literally, we were just like, it just doesn't matter what you just buy anything and it goes up. So I was like, all right, cool, we'll just buy some property.
Number one, yeah.
Yeah, myth number one, right? So armed with that amount of knowledge, we went and bought the wrong property, wrong place, wrong time, right? So
as we all do. I do the same, mate. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. Best thing ever.
Just pausing on that very quickly, because in 2018 you could have gone into property, you could have stuck your money in crypto, you could have stuck it into shares and equities. Why property over some of the other the sexier, trendier things that people are throwing money at?
That's a good question. I think I intrinsically understood the value of leverage and I had a desire for cash flow, right? So obviously one of the benefits of real estate as an asset class is leverage, right? If you get 10% growth in shares and it's unleveraged versus 10% growth in property, one of them is going to make you a hell of a lot of money. And it was a desire for cash flow. So the only thing I knew was property doubled every 7 years. It wasn't 100% true. I thought I sort of understood yields a little bit, and this off the plan apartment we were buying, I think it was
plan apartment. There's a big flashing red light right there, mate.
Yeah, totally right. But I didn't know that. I was like, oh no, it's in a good area, right? But I remember looking at the yields and stuff and thinking, okay, cool. If we rent this out, this is going to be about a 6% yield, I think it was, from memory, and all of that kind of stuff. So I was thinking about that. I was trying to think, like, what can I do that is going to improve our life? So improve our life meant work less. And in order to work less, you need to be able to make more, right? Pretty simple. So that was the goal. And I guess for us, we could just kind of see a better pathway and a more congruent pathway there. We understood it a little bit better. If you're going to invest in shares, for example, you need to understand business. Not only that, you need to understand how to analyze business, right? You need to be able to get to understand every company. Real estate is a little simpler in a sense, right? You still got to understand markets and everything like that. You got to understand how to analyze it, but it's a lot more tangible and easy to get your head around. Funny thing about Bitcoin, years before that, a friend of mine was telling me about Bitcoin, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to buy a Bitcoin miner for $1,200?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I don't want to spend it. I think I wanted to spend the $1,200 on drugs and alcohol instead." And I was like, "Nah, I don't want that. Why would I want that?" Oh my God, that was, so there's a lot of things that could have happened. But for us, it just seemed to make a little bit more sense. And I think at the time, the plan was like, we'll live in it, we'll stay there for a little bit, and then we didn't end up doing that. But there was a few reasons for it, and I think intrinsically we've just understood the value of leverage. Never really understood the value of compound growth up until around about that time as well. And so it was only we'd suddenly realised, oh my God, there's this thing called compound growth, and if we can get in the game, then hey, sky's the limit. So yeah, I think it just made a lot more sense to us at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go down the property journey. You personally, then, if we can.
Yeah, we can do that.
Obviously going to transition into the dot dash exercise as well at some point.
Totally. And they're intrinsically tied together, because here's the thing. Yeah. It's like I'm super, in case you can't tell already, I'm super transparent, right? So, there's a lot of people in the space who are very successful investors. And I probably stand out because I am not, in a sense, right? So I don't have a 10 property portfolio. Yep. We've got 3 properties, yep. Right? But
you're on a journey. Yeah,
we're on a journey. But here's the thing. That property that we bought, that off the plan apartment, wrong place, wrong property, wrong place, wrong time. It was really funny. We went to sign the we went to sign the paperwork, and I remember it was at 4:00 in the afternoon. We had to go and sign the contract, and we had to be at a property education seminar at 5, I think it was, something like that. And so we're there signing the contract, and we're going, dude, hurry up! We've got somewhere to be.
Something sounding a little bit back to front to me, mate. In my head, it's like sign the property, then go to the property seminar.
I know, right? But we were like, dude, hurry up! He's like trying to and sign this, and here's your wine. We're like, give us the wine, give us the contract, sign the things, let's go. And we jumped in the car and we're racing towards this property education seminar. We had a celebratory halal snack pack in the drive, sharing it. That was our we just got our first property under contract. Yay, little halal snack pack, and raced into this property education seminar. And then in this education seminar, now, got to say that I'm not going to name and shame the organisation, but they're not necessarily reputable. They don't exist anymore. Nonetheless, they were talking about all these concepts like, higher yields and cash flows. And it just started to coagulate all this stuff. And we would just sign the contracts, and we sat there in this 2-hour introductory seminar looking at each other going, oh, shit. We might have made a mistake here.
Creeping in.
Yeah, totally. But we had too much ego. We just convinced our parents to lend us some money on the basis that this was such a good idea. We're like, no, still a good idea. And then we got through the cooling off period, still a good idea. No, still a good idea. And then we were into the deal. But the thing is, right, that was all of that was so good because pretty much the day that we signed the contract, we realized we'd made a mistake. So that was the moment that I started going, got it. Okay, so how am I going to make this work then? How would this work? And this is going back to this idea that I'm constantly asking the question, how would I know? Why? How does this work? So all of a sudden, my focus shifted from events and party and stuff like that, and my brain was looking for something new, something to sink its teeth into. And I started to go, well, hang on a second. Why is it that some people make money in property? Why are some people successful and others aren't? Why do some properties grow and others don't? And I started asking these questions. I was like, well, what would the ideal property do? What would it look like? It would grow in value. It would produce more income than it uses. And given the fact that we just bought an off-the-plan apartment in Melbourne in 2018, right, just literally 2 weeks before the market took a bit of a downturn, I was like, how could you safeguard yourself from external forces like politics, the economy, and things like that? Okay, we call that value add potential. So this was the formation of what we now call the Holy Trinity. Now, bear in mind, all of this stuff has happened before I even thought about starting a real estate business, right? This was me just going, okay, awesome. So if we can find those 3 things, we'd nail it. Then I was like, well, yeah, I mean, can you even do that? I mean, surely if you could buy those types of properties, everyone would want to buy those properties, right? Wouldn't you? Go up in value, make heaps of money, and be cushioned against external forces. So I started asking a lot of questions, and I started to get this idea. I was finding mortgage brokers and property people and stuff, and I was just asking questions, going, "Hey, can this happen?" And just trying to piece it all together. I was like, "Okay, I'm pretty sure you can find these types of. I'm pretty sure they exist." So, but how the hell would you find them? So then that started a process of me going, "Okay, well, let me try and prove or disprove whether you can actually even find these things." So then I started going, "Okay, well, how would I identify a property market that is growing or about to grow?" So then that started this big research process, and literally, the 100-hour weeks on festival sites turned into 100-hour weeks in spreadsheets, going, okay, how can I try and identify a place for growth? How would I know? How would I make sure I'm factoring in all of the costs and cash flow to make sure it's all of this stuff, and just analysis, and research. And it was just so obsessive in a sense. So it was my addictive personality had flipped the other way, and I was like, here's something that I can really sink my teeth into.
Yeah. Loving it, mate. Loving it, because what I'm also loving about this whole exercise, it's not just an intellectual deep dive, because you've actually done something. You bought the property, and you've touched on the fact you've picked up an extra 2 along the way. So It's not, you're walking the talk, and you're learning as you walk. Yeah. Versus a lot of would-be gunner investors who are always gonna do it, mate, but never quite get around to doing it.
Yeah.
What I love about the journey that you're going in is that you do you're investing in yourself, you invest in your knowledge, but you actually turn that into action. You actually do something, and then you learn from that.
Yeah, totally. And this was the thing, right? So we sort of, I managed to prove the hypothesis, right? And so first I created the hypothesis that, you know, you could find these types of properties, and then I managed to work out that you could. And then there was a situation in December of that year where we were renting, and you know, the lease went on to a periodical lease. We were like, yeah, all good. You know, we'd been there for a while, and as soon as we went on to periodical, the landlord said, "Nah, get out." Right. And so, and funnily enough, I was organising a music festival at the time, and it was all at the same time. But anyway, that's by the by. Yep. So we very quickly had to go, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to rent somewhere else, or should we put some of this knowledge into action? Do we think we can actually do this? And so we had been, been much more sensible with, it's funny how much money you save when you're not drinking and spending it all on drugs. So we'd started to get a little bit more sensible with our money. So we'd pulled some money together and we said, okay, well, let's find a property. And we had 30 days. We had our eviction period, right? Let's find a property. Let's find something. We'll move into it. What are the key characteristics we're looking for? Okay, we want it to be in a good growth area. We wanted to be able to add value to it, and stuff like that. And we wanted a decent yield. Now, what we did, because we were also still working in Melbourne and stuff like that, we actually in that 30-day period, we found a place in Geelong. We bought it for about, from memory, I think it was about 50 grand under market value. Subdividable where other people didn't think it was subdividable, but I had the ability to do CAD drawings and stuff because my experience in real estate, in festivals, so I could actually do all the plans and go, okay, that's where the easements are. Yep, could work it all out. So we actually worked out we could subdivide it, renovatable, all this kind of stuff. And we're like, bang, got that. And so that was at the end of that year. So we bought that, moved into it as a renovator. And then we bought that 50 grand under market value, thereabouts. And so pretty much straight away, or within a couple of months, we refinanced that and used that capital to buy another one straight away as well, which was in a better growth area, better yields, et cetera, et cetera. So that was kind of that moment. But once we bought that property in Geelong, you know, we had this realization when we sort of felt like we'd actually achieved something, as opposed to like, all right, so we bought this off the plan apartment and, hey, bad idea. Then we'd gone on this whole journey of intensely trying to nut it out. How does this thing work? How can you do this? And then we did it successfully. We went out on our own, we researched, we found a property, and it had all the right characteristics. We made money straight out of the gate and we went, yes. Okay, it was a bit of a turning point where we're like, okay, I feel like we've actually, we've gotten somewhere. And at that point, our passion had very significantly shifted away from events. And our passion, we were obsessive about property, and, you know, the walls were covered with zoning maps and all kinds of stuff. And we sort of looked at each other and we said, you know what? I reckon we can help some people. And we had this big vision and we said, what if we could help 10 people in a year? You know, because there's probably other people just like us, friends, family, who were going to go and make the same mistakes that we would have made for that last property. And we thought, right, yeah, that seems like a worthy cause. Let's try and help a few people. And so that was that was the seed for us to go, okay, well, maybe we should think about doing this. And it was around, go on.
I totally get that. So the buyer's agency, though, so you decide to go down that route. I mean, you could have gone down mortgage broking route, you could have gone down the real estate sales route, you could have gone down a whole bunch of routes. Yep. Why the buyer's agency in particular?
Yeah, it's a good question, because the basis that we felt that we could help people was the basis that we'd actually developed a bit of a research and buying methodology. So finance was never the specialty, but we'd actually worked out, you know, we had managed to identify markets across the country that would produce good returns and had been able to deepen our methodology around identifying locations around the country. And we thought, okay, we can actually help people to make good buying decisions. That was really the premise. And we can actually help people to try and understand what types of properties they might need to buy in order to move them in the right direction and stuff like that. So it was centered around research first. So that's the interesting thing, is I think that we didn't wake up one day and say, you know what, let's start a real estate company. We developed a methodology that allowed us to identify better performing assets in better locations and went, okay, God, this is pretty cool. How can we help other people tap into this methodology?
Hey there, Andrew Montesi here, the producer of Get Invested. I hope you're enjoying this great conversation between Bushy and his guest, Goose McGrath. And there's plenty more from the guys in the next episode as they continue their fascinating chat, so be sure to stick around. In the meantime, if you'd like to optimise your performance in property investment, Bushy is taking investors to new heights in his unique Freedom Flight program, giving you access to live interactive information sessions and Bushy's unique portfolio planning process. To book your ticket or find out more, click the link in the show notes or visit knowhowproperty.com.au.